Tema Talks is brought to you by the Tema Conter Memorial Trust, which is Canada's leading provider of peer support, family assistance, education and training for emergency services, public safety, military personnel, and their families. Check out tema.ca for more information. The views, opinions, and endorsements expressed in each podcast episode are those of the host and the guest alone, and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. The subject matter of this podcast may be triggering for some listeners. Please take the time to get yourself in a calm and positive mind space before listening so you can get the most out of the podcast. Okay, cue the music and enjoy this episode of Tema Talks.
Hello, people, and welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for joining me here on Tema Talks. Happy to have you. I hope that you and yours are doing great. I can tell you that me and mine are doing fine. Remember, you can get the podcast at a number of different places, streaming exclusively on the Mental Health News Radio Network. You can find it on any podcast app where you normally get your podcasts. If you find that you cannot get it there, please let me know and I will have that fixed right away. But it should be there. And our YouTube channel's up and running, so search Tema Talks on YouTube. All of the Tema Talks episodes are there now, and shortly, all of the old Up Talks will be there as well. So check that out. Remember to play the Tema Talks gratitude game. When I mention another organization or another advocate other than the person that I'm talking to during the podcast, you need to pause the podcast and say out loud 3 things that you're grateful for. And then continue listening. But you're not done there. After you're done listening to the podcast, go on YouTube, the Tema Talks Facebook page, Tema Talks Instagram page, post a comment. Posting a video would be even better, telling us what it was you were grateful for. We want to know. I want to know. All right, let's get this thing rolling and create a culture of gratitude. We definitely need it. All right, my guest is Dr. Belinda Seagram. She is a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma, working out of the Windsor, Nova Scotia area. And she's also founded Landing Strong, a treatment facility opening up in Windsor. Actually, today is their open house. So congratulations to them. You're going to learn all about that treatment facility along with a comic book called Heroes Comics, and you're going to find out how you can get a free comic. So have a listen. It's going to be great. I loved it. Let's get to it.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to Tema Talks, Belinda. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks very much, Sean.
I wanted to have you on for a while. I saw an article in a local paper. I used to live in Windsor, so I saw an article in the local paper about this facility that you wanted to start up, and obviously I zoned in on that and wanted to get you on right away. But before we get into that, I wanted to learn a little bit about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up and how you got interested in wanting to get involved in psychology?
Sure. I grew up downtown Toronto, actually,
Okay.
and did a double major in psychology and criminology. And my initial intention, to be honest, was to go into policing.
Okay.
And I'd graduated from undergrad and had spent the summer training for the physical and for Metro Toronto Police. And I had an interview scheduled, and then I got a late admission to grad school, so I went in that direction instead. But my interests were always with first responders, with policing, with military. I've had a long-standing interest in this area.
Right.
So I did my master's research on that topic and looked at I wondered about being in policing and retaining one's identity, not losing oneself in the job. That's always been really interesting for me.
Right.
And so I went across the country interviewing people from major urban police centers and finding out why they leave, what happens, and what are the factors that lead to them dropping from the forces. And so learned a lot from that. And I remember one particular city I went to, there was a group of detectives that had been doing working together for many, many years. And this group of people really was spontaneously combusting, I would say. Their lives were all falling apart all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this is interesting, and this seems to be more about the job than about the people, that something's happening here.
Right.
That's affecting them, and that's taking such a significant toll on their personal lives. And so that's when I really started thinking hard about the effects of chronic exposure to workplace trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I was a paramedic here in Nova Scotia for a long time, and I remember we had this one base, and I won't name it, but I remember sort of living through that. This one base, everybody seemed to fall apart. Everybody was getting divorced. Like every couple in the base was getting divorced. It was just like everything happens to them at the same time.
That's right. In this place, everyone's marriages were all falling apart. They're all sleeping in each other's couches and things. It was a bit of a disaster. But even when I did my doctoral work, I worked with violent young offenders, actually. But in that facility, I realized it was just really a depository for some of the most sort of abused, neglected kids I'd ever seen, and things have really gone south for them. And later on, working in a federal penitentiary, I was a chief psychologist for 7 years at one of the largest federal penitentiaries in Canada. Huh. And again, you see chronic exposure to trauma with the people I'm doing. So, people in there for awful offenses. But at the core of it, there would be a lot of trauma that had been not resolved. Right. And when I was working in that facility, I had some clients who were former police officers, former military members, people who'd had long, really, really stellar careers, who'd done just really shocking and very out of character things at the end of their careers, which involved violence. And I realized, wow, it's not just marriages that can go south, but I mean, lives can really go south. And often, substance abuse and addictions can be part of that.
Right.
The work we did was very much a lot of processing around the job. Yeah. So, years later, I'm here in Nova Scotia. I set up a private practice, and I just renovated a building and had only been here for a short time when there was a knock at the door. And I didn't even have a sign up, and it was a veteran. And he said, I hear you're setting up shop, and I'm here to sign up.
Oh, really?
I'm like, well, come on in. How did you find out about it? And we started doing the work, and he had very, very severe military-related trauma exposure after a long career. And we started doing the work and walked that journey together. And from that point on, really within 3 months, the practice was really full. And almost most of the people I work with were military members, veterans, first responders, and their family members. So it really became, for the last 10 years, it's been an area of special interest for me.
Is that how long you've been in Nova Scotia, or for the practice, I mean?
Yeah, for 10 years, and I've been in the field, about, 27 years.
Wow. And
so it's been a pretty strong history of working with people who are overcoming trauma. It's really been a core passion of mine.
Yeah, I mean, when you got started in this, I'm going to take it from a first responder point of view. When you got started in this, nobody probably, and I say nobody, but, as far as statistics go, we're really coming forward to try to get help with this, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't something that we, thought about or worried about or thought was going to be a problem for us, especially when you would have started. How have you seen that progress? I know we're not there yet. We have a lot of work to do. Have you seen that progress through your practice and through your career so far?
Oh, I've seen huge progression, and I can give you one example. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the people I work with in federal penitentiary. I remember one fellow walking in, and he was talking about he'd had a lot of childhood abuse and such. And I said, would you ever have considered coming forward and getting help with a psychologist? And he said, are you crazy? Are you crazy? He said, nobody in my peer group did that. And I said, and how many of your peer group are incarcerated right now? And he said, well, almost all of them.
Wow.
But that was socially accepted. But certainly coming forward for help wasn't. Now, he didn't happen to be a first responder or but it was, I found that interesting that when we're in a culture that certainly, if it's not easy to get help, what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. I found there's been huge shifts. People are much more likely to come forward now. What breaks my heart is I get a lot of people coming forward for help at the end of their careers. So
that's right.
They've come in maintenance mode, trying to keep things together, and it's when they take an early retirement or they go on a medical leave at the end, and then they come in, and we're doing 35 plus years work of trauma exposure. And I love it when people come earlier on, because if people come earlier in their career and they might have just some of the initial signs of trauma effects, we can do some quick resilience work and shore things up and get them, back to full functioning. But people are often hesitant to do that because of potential career impacts. They're what if word gets out? What if I get a label? And what I tell them is, listen, we do the right work now, you won't get severely injured, and you'll be able to continue with your career and do really well with it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I would have known that, that's how it happened for me. I didn't realize that I needed to do anything until I was broken and my career was over. So
and that's unfortunately the common story. And I think what I'd love for us to weave into sort of the fabric of working culture is, hey, those early signs, drinking too much, shutting down of your emotion, marital harmony, disharmony, perhaps, if you're having issues with fidelity, those are pretty common warning signs. Emotional regulation, anger, shutting down. Those are signs probably you need to come in and do some preventative work. Not wait till things go far down the line.
Yeah, we need to get to students. We need to get to in the high schools later years, and especially in the first responder schools. We need to get a program. This needs to be part of the program, I believe.
Yeah. And a lot of it comes from, to do the hard work, people are trained to shut down their emotions.
Right.
It's very hard to be functional in many of these first responder or military jobs if you're emotional while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's very functional to be shut down. And basic training is a lot about learning to do that override.
Right.
How do I override my emotional needs and just remain functional and do the job? And that's fantastic while you're in the job. But when you come off, then knowing how to turn it back on. How, people say, well, I can't share the details of what I do with my significant others. That would be, I don't want to put the load on them. I don't want to contaminate my home life. But so they separate and shut off. Mm-hmm. And we know then the split happens and that divide happens. So it's learning how to talk about emotions without actually talking about the events.
Yeah, that's a big one. I still struggle with that because that's my biggest problem was, and it still is to a degree, transitioning from work to being inside my own four walls. That's the hardest transition ever.
That's right. And over the years, those walls get thicker and thicker.
Yeah, they do. They do, for sure.
Learning to have that dialogue, talking about emotions, remaining a feeling connected person without burdening people with the things that you might have seen or experienced.
Yeah, that's key. So, Belinda, you're acting on this, and you've started a program called Landing Strong. Mm-hmm. So, talk to us about that. Very excited about it.
I'm really excited about it. It's been an obsession for a number of years now, and it's actually becoming a reality. We have a center in Windsor, Nova Scotia, and we're just putting the finishing touches on some renovations. It's gorgeous. It's out of the Cedar Center.
Where's that? I can't picture it.
It's the old Hobble furniture building.
Oh, perfect. That's a beautiful building. Okay.
Yeah, it's big. It's high ceilings, big windows, brick walls, big beams. Like, I love that kind of old space, lovely architecture. So in my mind, I had a vision. The place for healing can't be a place that feels clinical or institutional.
Right.
It needs to feel more almost spa-like or, inspirational. So the whole idea of Landing Strong is creating a safe place for people to land following injury. Creating a community. I believe really, really fully that recovery takes place within healing communities. Post-traumatic stress or many operational stress injuries can be very isolating conditions.
Right.
And so people say, well, I don't want to talk to people in front of groups about it. We don't expect people to know how to do that. Right. It's our job to create a very, very safe place and create an understanding community that helps that recovery process. So we've created beautiful rooms. We've created a holistic program because it's not just about the psychological injury. It's also about physical recovery. It's really common that people have chronic pain associated with post-traumatic stress or operational stress injuries. So we want to look at the mind and the body. And people often don't know how to spend their free time. They might have lost passion for things they used to do and not know how to engage themselves. Right. So really looking at leisure pursuits and use of time, finding meaning and purpose. Because really it's about, if I can't do this job, who am I as a person? What is my identity? Working with them as a whole person, well, let's look at that. Let's look at the mechanism of injury. Let's look at learning how to protect yourself from that, build up your resilience, reconnect with emotions, realize that emotions actually can't hurt us. It's what injures us is shutting down our emotions.
Right.
So yeah, when you reconnect, for sure, there's going to be a little bit of floodgates happening. So manage that really safely, work through it, and help to create a sense of self that's strong and resilient. And so, we've designed a 3-month program. It's an intensive day treatment program, because right now in Nova Scotia, what we do is if people are really injured, certainly for military members or RCMP, they tend to be sent out of the province for 2 or 3-month programs, but family's not part of that. It's disconnected. They come back, and there are some excellent programs out of province, but they're just not here. And it's very, very costly for them to go. It's about $100,000 a pop.
Wow.
And very few can access it. So I want something that's here, that's accessible, and that we can involve family members as part of our extended services as well. And really that even when someone's finished their 3 months, that it's a program that doesn't go away, that Fridays are community days and we have activities that people can come back and stay engaged and involved in the community as long as they need to. It might be forever, might be for months, might be once a month, whatever they need, that we don't disappear on them.
Well, I think that's big.
I think that's huge. And that we remain there as a support also for their family members. So we've got a lovely, really comprehensive program drawn up. I'm looking for pilot funding I'm really hopeful of trying to get pilot funding from VAC. We've submitted a massive proposal. Don't know how that will go, but we'll find out by the end of the summer. In an ideal world, we'd have the first program running starting October 22nd. That's the plan A.
Right.
And certainly the center will be up and ready, and it's being furnished and such.
So let's say the start. So how many people can you take at one time?
We do 2 groups, each with 8 people in it. So we could do 16 people, but each group only has 8 in it, and it's a gentle startup. And what I say to people, they say, I couldn't possibly talk about my issues in front of people. And I say, you're not expected to. We spend a lot of time working on safety. In fact, we would spend so much time working on safety that participants will actually be impatient with us. Like, okay, when do I get to talk about the hard stuff? It's like, I think people sometimes they're forced into groups. They're forced to speak too quickly, or they feel pressured, and there's none of that. It's like, we really look to people to set their own pacing, and it's our job to create a context and a really safe and supportive environment to do so. And it's going to be very experientially based, so it's not sit down, teachy, classroomy. It's like learn by doing. Right. Which I think is a lot more natural for many people who choose sort of first responder occupations.
So what would the program? Because you say it is a day treatment, so people they come there and they go back home afterwards every day. Yep. So what would a program? What would a typical day look like? I know it would change throughout the 3 months, but like, what would someone expect their day to be like?
Well, they come in and we do a check-in, and generally in the morning, say, might do a treatment group. The treatment group might be around. It might be trauma. It might be addictions. Looking at choices, emotional regulation, managing our emotions without having to use substances. It could be around identity and transformation. Figure out who we are and how we define ourselves. It might be around expressing ourselves. So there's a lot of pieces around it. We have a mind-body group, so it's just a little bit of mindfulness training. Right. So a lot of core core groups, and they're also you might also do some yoga. You might do some
good.
Pilates. We'll do a lot of hiking. I'd love to get a little bit of biking happening. Everyone's going to be at different levels in their physical abilities. We have an exercise physiologist working with us, and he'll be doing individualized assessment of each person, and we'll be doing that psychologically as well, finding out where is each person at, what do they need. So we'll look at their psychological well-being, we'll look at their physical well-being, and design specialized programs for each person.
Okay, so there will be obviously there's going to be a lot of group aspects, and there also is the opportunity for some individual work as well.
Yes, there will be individual work, and we also have and there's a little bit of a menu where people can choose. They have a little bit of freedom to choose. Well, they have like a certain number of credit hours they can spend on something they think they specifically need. They might say, "Oh, I want to spend my credit hours on massage. I want to earn time with a naturopath, or I want budgeting help. I want a budgeting specialist to come in and work with me.
Cool.
So there's a lot of those kind of options, but everybody's going to get the emotional care, the psychological help, and also the physical care. That's a standard part of the program. So certainly, we provide a really nutritious lunch. We'll provide 2 snack breaks. Part of it's learning just to eat healthy again. Some people are great at that, and some people struggle with that. So making sure everything you do is role modeling. So, part of it is completely self-serving. As a psychologist, I sit all day, and I'm a very active person. I want to move more. So I want to be out there hiking, walking too.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, are there also sort of, I want to call them baseline therapies included? Like, I went through EMDR. Is that something someone could do, or whether it's cognitive behavior therapy or the other ones that are out there? Is that also going to be available? Yes,
all of the psychologists and social workers working with this program are very specialized in trauma work. And they'd all be trained in CPT or CBT or cognitive processing therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, EMDR. They're all people who've been working specifically with veterans, with first responders for many years. So I'm very fortunate. I've got some really talented people with specialized training in that regard. So, and they're fun people, and they're outside of the box people, which
perfect.
Half the time we really need to look at things and just step outside. It's okay. If this isn't working, what can we do a little differently? Let's just step outside and see how can we engage this person, help them feel safe and comfortable, and help them move forward.
That sounds wicked. So you're looking to, hopefully we get this started in October.
Yeah.
Whenever I can, I'd love to get down and see the place. I'll let you know. I'd love to have a look. But definitely keep us updated as far as how things are going with that.
Yeah, we'll have an open house in August, but I guess this is airing in September. But certainly, anybody who's interested in seeing the center, they can give us a call, and we'll give them an individualized tour. That'll be a big part of what we're doing the first few months of being open, just one-on-one, having people do a walkthrough, meet with our admissions people, or just check it out and just say, hey, I want to see what it is so I can find out what's going on in my area. Love to see people.
No, it's wicked. I'm excited. It's gonna be great. So, apart from that, you have another sort of program that you've been working on. This the Hero Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, PTSD Hero Comics. Part of it is people who are struggling with, as you know, with post-traumatic stress or operational stress injuries. It can be very isolating.
Right.
And the idea of reaching out for help and getting help and joining a community can be a bit daunting. So we wanted to create a virtual community of support so that if people aren't ready to have face-to-face contact, at least they can really have encounters with virtual community. In this case, it happens to be comic book characters of people who've gone through similar experiences. So PTSD Hero Comics, it starts off with Jay, who's an Afghan vet, and he's come back, and things are not going so well for him. He's been isolating, hiding in his basement. There's tension with his wife. He doesn't know how to relate to his son. He's having a lot of post-traumatic symptoms. And so, it's about his early stages of his struggle. So the idea is to create really a parallel world where we see people going on their own journeys of recovery. Now, Jay does meet someone who's also a veteran who gives him a helping hand, plays the role of a mentor. But he ends up meeting with a larger community of veterans and first responders. And I don't know if you've ever sort of read through comic books in your own life, but
Sure.
I read Archie comics when I was younger.
My daughter loves Archie comics. She reads
There you
all
go.
the
Well,
Archie comics.
you get to know like Betty and Veronica and Jughead, and there were different series around each of those characters. So, walking with these characters, we'll have a chance to get to understand their worlds. There'll be firefighters, there'll be police officers, and we'll walk with that community through their peaks and valleys of their recovery. So really, the first issue has been released. It's called The Enemy Within, and the idea behind the first issue is just to convey the message that, first of all, there is hope. You're not alone. That recovery is possible. And here are some of the basics of what PTSD is and what recovery might involve, just in broad strokes sort of way.
Right.
So each comic book, although we're trying to integrate story and make it engaging and entertaining, we also want to embed therapeutic principles. Because what I found, and certainly what I find when I'm working with people one-on-one, is we can review some concepts, but sometimes, as you know, memory can be a big issue. Focus, concentration can be big issues. People say, I can't read properly. So I wanted to come up with a non-verbal format for reinforcing a lot of the core therapeutic principles that are necessary for recovery, and start just embedding them in stories. So when people read, hopefully they're engaged, hopefully it's enjoyable, but also they'll be learning and they'll be assisting their own recovery.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
So it's been very exciting. That first issue came out, and we have issues 2 and 3 that are going to be released. Probably issue 2 will probably be around the end of the summer, and issue 3 before the end of the year. So we'll get the first 3 issues out by December.
Right.
And we're doing we're really doing a wonderful thing. If anybody's interested,
go ahead.
We're looking for people who might be interested in giving us feedback for issue 1. And because we want to make sure everything we do is informed, and that we're looking for content, and we want the content to be driven by our readers' needs and interests as well as by the therapeutic stuff. So really making it a live, integrated process where we're gathering information, getting feedback, using that in the design of the new series. So right now we're doing the audience feedback part of issue 1, and anybody's interested in receiving a free copy, we will mail it to them if they will, in return, agree to complete a 3 to 5 minute online feedback survey.
Perfect.
And so what we would do is ask if they're interested in that, they can certainly just contact us on info@landingstrong.com.
Info@landingstrong.com. Easy.
Yeah. And we're happy, and just say, I'm interested in being a reviewer, or not a reviewer, we're just providing feedback on the comic book. We'll send them a link. We'll send them the comic. We'll also send them a link to the Survey Monkey. And it's really a quick survey, but it's very, very important for us that we know that what we're doing is grounded in science, and that we're grounded in real life feedback. So as part of this virtual community of support, it's not just the comics. We also have a whole campaign of Facebook and of Instagram and Twitter, ways of we're constantly sending out information around recovery, around inspiration, around very concrete sort of tips and tricks to help people with everyday struggles they might be facing. We've got a weekly blog.
Are those accounts set up now?
Everything's up and active.
Oh, so where can people find you?
It's if you just go to landingstrong.com on that website.
Yeah.
And just join to be part of just say I want to subscribe to the newsletter. We'll automatically send you the weekly blog, and a little bit of a newsletter and some helpful tips. We try to send maybe one thing per week. If you're join our Facebook account, we post one thing per day, and it tends to be we try to link it to what we're doing and make everything helpful and useful. And we're working on more in-depth PDFs that we'll be releasing and coming up with soon with very, very detailed strategies and things that might be helpful for people.
Cool. So the links to all the social media are on the website. They can just go there.
All on landingstrong.com.
Cool. Sorry, we'll go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. We're really excited about it, and I'm receiving just really interesting input, feedback from people just through info@landingstrong.com. So people will sometimes read something, they'll email me at info@landingstrong.com, and based on what they feedback to me, I'll make the next week's blog about that. So it's really, very organic process.
Awesome. That sounds sweet. That's excellent. So you've already given us some contact information, Belinda, so thank you. Everybody can reach out if they want to, and they know where to do that. Mm-hmm. So before I get into my last question for you, I just thought of a question. So you've been doing this for quite a while. You've been, you deal with trauma, everybody else's trauma all the time. And I thank you for your service, but that obviously takes a toll on you. It has to. What do you do? What are some of the things you do to try to maintain your own mental wellness through all of this?
Yeah. What an excellent question. Well, to be honest, after my job at the federal penitentiary, I wasn't in the greatest shape. So I guess I practice a bit what I preach. That was a tough place to work, and it wasn't the inmates that really wore me down. It was, I think, is for many people, it might be some of the things you see in your job and you're exposed to, but also it can be whether or not we feel supported by the infrastructure, the people who are supposed to have our back.
Right.
So after that job, it's interesting, I went out into the wilderness for a few years. I became a wilderness therapist. Oh. I literally needed to be a place where there were no walls. So I would go into the wilds of Algonquin Park, by canoe or by skidoo, and work with kids with serious substance abuse problems. I did that for a number of years with Pine River Institute. But for me now, I guess there are a couple of things. First of all, people say, how can you do this work all day, every day? And it's because I see people get better. When I have people come in and they're so injured when they first come in, sometimes I think, oh my goodness, I hope this person can recover, but it looks tough. And then, and it's not, I won't kid you, it's not easy work. As you know, it takes years sometimes, but I see them get better. That's what motivates me to want to create this center, because I know change happens. I see people getting better, but I'm impatient with the speed that it takes, the time it takes. And I've also seen, I'm part of the Veterans Transition Network as well, which is a fantastic program. And I see people get huge strides ahead in their recovery. So I'm thrilled with that, and so I think I want to speed this up more. So I guess part of it is not working alone in it. So I've been so thrilled. I've partnered with the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. Right. They've come on recently as a partner. And they're helping to do fundraising and support what we're doing. And I worked with the Creative Industries Fund and the Culture Innovation Fund from the government of Nova Scotia, the Community Culture and Heritage Department, and they help fund the comic book. So first of all is, I guess, getting some real life supports and building this center. And we got money from the Accessibility Fund from the government as well to help renovate the center. So really starting to structurally make changes, create a reality that we can get people healthier faster. What kills me most is seeing people struggling alone and having them feel that the services aren't out there. So I want to make sure we have world-class services available to people here in Nova Scotia, and there's no reason we shouldn't have that.
No, you're right.
We have a very high proportion of volunteer firefighters, a high proportion of military members. I think if we're sending people to do this line of work, it's our obligation, our responsibility to make sure we give them top-notch care when they come back home or when they come out of the job. So really dedication around that. But certainly watching people get better so it's not about working with people in their trauma every day.
Right.
Those are just the steps I take towards seeing them get better.
Right.
And for me, I spend a lot of time in nature. My time off, I've got some dogs. I walk with my dogs and spend a lot of time with my family. I've got a cottage. We like to do on our vacation time. We go to backcountry stuff. We're going to the Rockies this summer, doing some backcountry hiking through the Rockies. I like to go to Africa every second year. We do community work there. Just really making sure I do things that keeps perspective and helps me feel connected to kind of the universe and nature and everything that's good about it.
Yeah, that's so important.
trying to stay, try to remain physically active. I think we can't separate mind from body.
Right.
And I do a lot of writing, a lot of art, a lot of creative expression, because that's a big way of just unloading some of that. So very, very important for me to do those things. And it's often not the first thing I want to do at the end of a long day, but after I do something creative at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, I feel totally cool.
Nice.
And creating this program it's been interesting. It's been very challenging and sometimes taxing, but other times incredibly energizing, thinking, okay, we're really going to have something very exciting happening here in this province.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I'm really excited about it. Belinda, if someone is listening right now who is struggling at any level whatsoever and they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
I would say, know that you're not alone. Know that there is hope, that recovery is possible. Don't lose faith if you've been working at it for even a number of years and aren't there yet. It might just be it's taking time, or it might be you need to change up what you're doing, but that the goal isn't to go back to who you were before. People say, I want to be my old self, and I said, that's not going to happen. The goal isn't to return to former self. It's to understand a new identity that reclaims those aspects of self that were best about you. So we want to do so reclaiming yourself. We want to recalibrate your central nervous system because it's overtaxed, it's overcharged. We want to learn how to bring it down again. And we want to sort of do work on who you are next and who you want to be, so in the next steps. Because there's a whole identity piece. How do you find meaning and purpose in your life now, particularly if you're not able to do that role that you had before?
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
Know that we understand this is not a simple process, but the most important thing is not going through it alone.
Well said. Thank you for that. It's so important to remember those things. Belinda, you're awesome. I thank you for your work. This is going to be so great. I look forward to seeing it evolve.
Thank you, Sean.
No, it's my pleasure. We need everybody on board. Everybody's different skill set. Everybody has a sort of a part to play, and we have so much work left to do.
Exactly.
And I think we're doing it. I think we're on the path to do it. But thank you for doing this. It's going to help so many people. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of goodwill in Nova Scotia. I do think we're a very special province. We have this incredible sense of community, and I think we're really good at looking out for one another.
Right.
And I think because of that, I think we have the power to create things that are perhaps a lot more powerful than maybe some of the bigger provinces have been able to do. So I take a lot of pride in our little and what we might do. Just like, for example, you running this podcast and creating a community of your own is fantastic.
Well, thanks. It's my pleasure to do it, talk to cool people like you. Belinda, keep taking care of yourself and your family, and keep working at what you're doing, and we'll touch base, and we'll keep an eye on what you're doing. But thank you for taking the time and coming on.
Thanks, and come visit us at landingstrong.com.
Oh, I definitely will. All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
Thank you to Dr. Belinda Seagram for taking the time to come on the podcast. I also want to thank her personally for her work as a clinical psychologist. I know she's helped many people, among them many friends of mine, many first responders in the area that have gone to her for help. And also thank you for landing strong. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to get back there to visit. Congratulations on that awesome endeavor, and all the best for that. All right, guys, did you play the Tema Talks gratitude game? I will know if you didn't, so get to it. And I want to see your comments. I want to see your videos of what you're grateful for. Bring it on. Load up my Facebook page, Tema Talks Facebook page, or the Tema Talks YouTube page, or the Instagram page. Tag the Tema Talks Instagram page on your video. That would be awesome as well. All right, guys, listen, there's lots of podcasts. If you like listening to podcasts and you want to listen to something else along with Tema Talks, not instead of course, But along with, there's lots of stuff to listen to. Brainstorm by Natalie Harris. PTSD Bunker Gear for the Brain by Carl Waggett. And Rescue the Rescuer podcast, also on the Mental Health News Radio Network, by my brother Stephen Kovalkovich. There's lots of stuff out there to listen to. Lots of great work being done. We need more of it, and we can start to make a dent in this issue. Everybody keep doing your work. Everybody has a part to play, no matter what you do. It's important. So keep doing it. I got some more episodes left before the end of the year, so hang in there. It's been a great year so far, and we got lots of great guests coming. So, until we meet again, take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens